Thank you guys so much for tuning in and on episode 4 of the last podcast of Krypton. And we are joined today by Mr. Eanix, if I pronounced your sponsor correctly. Is it Eanix?
Eanix. Yeah,
Eanix, yeah.
Eanix.
With Eanix Biohazard. Bio, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing swell. How are you doing?
I am doing quite swell as well. Have you been recuperating yourself from the trauma that was the Deadshot buffs? I mean the Deadshot nerfs, excuse me.
I've been I've been trying to recuperate by you know, playing Swamp Thing, and I think it's working out pretty well so far.
Mhm.
I've almost forgotten all about Deadshot, so it's going pretty well.
Alrighty, well, I'm glad you used Swamp Thing as your way to cheer yourself up from Paulo's vision, but we'll for sure get into the Deadshot and nerfs a little bit later on the podcast. So, usually with all my guests, I always ask them, how did you get into the FGC to begin with? Now, I'm going to do something a little bit different for you today. When I was streaming a set with you about 2 days ago, me versus your Black Manta,
Right.
someone in the stream chat said, "Hey, why is Biohazard's name Wyoming 15?" And I tried to explain to the stream chat what it was since you explained it to me one time, but I couldn't. So, can you please explain where did the name Wyoming 15 come
Okay.
from and why haven't you changed it?
Okay, so it's not too difficult. It's the reason my tag is Wyoming 15 is because, when I got the PS3, it was man, it's been a long time. It's been over 10 years or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I needed a username, and at that point, I didn't have any kind of username, so I would watch Red versus Blue. You've heard of Red versus Blue by Rooster Teeth?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Okay, so basically, it's a comedy spoof using like Halo characters,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they had a character that was named Wyoming, so he was like my favorite. So I was like, I'm gonna choose that, and number 15 is like my favorite number. I'm gonna choose that, and there you go. And then the reason I didn't change it to like Biohazard, CMNDR or something like that for like a new tag is because like I actually enjoyed collecting trophies for the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
So just because I don't want to like lose all my trophies and those little accomplishments, I don't want to switch my name to Biohazard. I know it's ridiculous, but I would just wish they would allow me to change it, but that's the way it is.
I mean, dude, that just shows how much of a loyalist you are. Like you've been through CR Biohazard, and then you were unsponsored, and then you're now with Eanix, but you just stayed loyal to the Wyoming username, man. I gotta give you props for that.
Gotta rep Wyoming.
So, yeah, and then like my stream chat was asking, but Biohazard's in Canada, so what does that have anything to do with Wyoming? But
Yeah. Yeah, I
now,
get that a lot. Yeah.
so
It is what it is.
um, I've known you in Injustice One as a Bane player, and
Right.
I saw your Nightwing like once in a blue moon. And then when I was around for Mortal Kombat X, you were a Ferritor player.
Right, I was.
So one of our NRS guys, M2 Dave, would immediately call you a rushdown fool. Now I would call you a big body fool. Are you someone that's specifically attached to big body characters, or did it all come with pure coincidence that you just chose those characters?
So I mean, so the way it worked when Injustice came out, and I picked up the game and I looked at the characters and I saw what the characters could do. I picked Bane,
Mm-hmm.
or I saw what Bane could do. His moves and so on. And so I was like, yeah, I really enjoy what he does. I want to use that character. Unfortunately, Bane was god awful in the beginning of the game,
Mm-hmm.
so I had to use another character. So I decided to, play Harley Quinn,
Mm-hmm.
and she was kind of like my go-to character for the amount of time until they finally, buffed Bane, and we got all the whole, what is it, the Bane treatment became in effect,
Yeah,
right?
there's like two phrases. One is the Bane treatment, and two is X character got buffed to the moon. I think
Yes.
like back when 16-bit had the Combat Tomb podcast, he like immortalized a saying that like Bane got buffed to the moon. I can't beat Max anymore. Like
Yeah.
during those GTA days.
So yeah, like I mean, I use Bane for the majority. You know, even through his tough matchups, because he did have quite a few of them. You know, definitely Batgirl, Martian, Flash. There were some really bad matchups for him, but I just kind of stuck with the character. So very much known as like a character loyalist, mainly because people didn't know about my Harley as well, and I didn't really use her in tournament. The only time I tried using her in tournament was I think it was at the Fall Classic, and I just lost like 2 games straight to like Sid the Haze. I was like, screw this, I'm going to use Bane. So and until kind of, you know, when the game kind of died off, I decided I'm going to try learning like Nightwing, because I just want to learn different characters. The game's almost over, and I enjoyed Nightwing, you know, so I was kind of sad that he wasn't in Injustice 2 as well. When Mortal Kombat came around and I was, you know, looking for another character, I'm not a big Mortal Kombat fan, right? I joined the game because of Injustice, because I like DC heroes.
Right.
So when it came to Mortal Kombat, there was nobody that I was like super interested in. So I'm just like, let me just, you know, maybe try one of the new guys. And Ferritor was kind of that character that fit as like a Bane figure and a Harley figure, and you put them together and you kind of got Ferritor.
Right. And
Farah was the same voice actor as Harley, right? So I thought it was pretty neat. So I was gonna play, you know, Ferritor. I played Ferritor for a year. It was really bad of me to do that to myself.
Loyalism, man.
Yeah, it wasn't the smartest thing to play that kind of character, you know, on its own for a year without any kind of backup. Well, I mean, you know, they had the variation system. That was the backup.
Right.
But still, it didn't really like help in a lot of areas. So for a year, I played Ferritor until, and I remember the moment I decided I'm not going to be a loyalist anymore was when my brother and I went to hype spotting, and I made top 8 there. You know, I didn't do as well as I was hoping to do. I really wanted to go just beyond just 7th. I didn't want to just get 7th, but I ran into Tekken Master and he counterpicked my ass with Shinnok.
Is that considered a bad matchup?
It was considered some 7-3 bullshit. Yeah, it was some real nonsense. And then I was so salty. When I lost there, I was like, yeah, this is the end of me just playing Ferritor. I'm not doing this to myself anymore. So thank God I picked up like Kano, because I was able to help myself out in, you know, stuff like Evo and other tournaments going on. Yeah.
So, because as soon as Injustice 2 came out, I'm glad you basically like brought all that up about your loyalism, and then like in Injustice 1 you played some Harley and then Nightwing at the end. But in Injustice 2, you just totally like deviated from sticking with one character most of the time. It's like Injustice 2 came out, bam, you use Harley, and then bam, you use Deadshot, and then like bam, you use like Swamp Thing out of nowhere at Absolute Battle. So, would you say that diversifying your arsenal helped you more than just sticking to a loyalist? Like, do you feel like your results are better because you diversified your arsenal with like 3 or 4 different characters?
Yeah, I think, you know, going into Injustice 2, I already had a mindset. You know, I played 2 games competitively, and both of them NRS games. So there's like things that you can take from the NRS games that you've already played and apply them to the new ones. And in those games, I found I didn't necessarily play the top tier of characters that you could just play on their own without any kind of secondary backup, and you're able to win kind of tournaments with that. Is just not kind of the characters I ended up going with. So I went into Injustice 2 knowing I was going to be playing multiple characters, and I was like, I know I'm going to play like 3 or 4 characters. Obviously, I wanted to play Bane because, I started Injustice 1 with Bane.
Yeah.
I knew how to play Harley as well. So I'm going to, there's already two characters for me.
And they're both legacy-ish.
Sorry?
And they're both legacy-ish characters.
Yeah, they were both legacy characters for the most part. I mean, Harley had the change with the hiding the trait, but for the most part, she was the same character. Bane got some new moves, but he was in part the same character. You couldn't really run a train as you could in the first game. You had to really pick your moments and think now. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, they were two characters that I knew how to play. And then I wanted to really pick up another character, and Deadshot kind of filled that role.
Uh-huh.
I just found I had my Rushdown, I had Harley, which was kind of a mix between the two. So I wanted to play a character that was full on a range for the I know you can play him up close, but for the most part, Deadshot is a zoner type, right? So
of course, yeah.
I wanted to diversify my portfolio and play all the types. Yeah, so that's what happened with Deadshot, and then I think I basically stuck out with those three until Black Manta came out. Well, there was Swamp Thing. Okay, yeah, let's talk about Swamp Thing.
Oh, what is there not to say about Swamp Thing, man?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so actually, when I played Bane and Harley, I was I want to pick up another character. Swamp Thing was in that category. When I knew he was going to be in the game, I was I'm digging Swamp Thing. I want to try him out. I think he kind of fell into the same category as Bane did in Justice 1, where he's just not very good.
Yeah.
So there was really no point to use him competitively just for fun. And I don't know, Absolute Battle, I just decided.
I remember at Absolute Battle, you had Sonic Fox first round of top 8. And then you said to me, hey, I want to use Swamp Thing on him. And then I said, wait, don't do that. That's a waste of a game, man. You're just going to give him a free game.
Yeah, you're the only one that said that. Because I told Dragon and Illusions that I wanted to use Swamp Thing, and they said that might be a good choice because it's going to surprise them.
Yeah, so not only that, but because you got the first game on Sonic Fox, with Swamp Thing, I apologize. On behalf of the podcast and to my Twitch audience, I am issuing you a public apology for your Swamp Thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. But oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, unfortunately, the whole thing with me using Swamp Thing there was I got a little too into my Swamp Thing, I think. Because I won the match, but then he switched to Red Hood, and it was kind of close. So I really should have switched off of Swamp Thing at that point, but then I was I'm going to try Swamp Thing again. Didn't work out.
Right. But I mean, at least you know that your Swamp Thing has tournament experience. So if someone ever makes the case of who's the best Swamp Thing, you can just show on your resume that you won a premier match with him, and that adds some sort of weight.
Yeah.
So speaking of character diversity, one of your characters in your arsenal took a big hit.
Yes.
How do you feel about the Deadshot nerfs? What do you think about the character now, just going forward?
So my initial reaction to Deadshot getting nerfed was hopefully it's not going to be too bad of a deal for the character. Hopefully he's still going to be tournament viable. I was being optimistic that he would be still good after the patch. I was talking to Fox Grandpa. I was what do you think of the changes? Do you think it's going to be at least decent for him, that he's going to be able to fight? And Foxy was already he was there's no way that this character is going to be able to do anything tournament with the kind of nerfs that he got. But I was still optimistic, and I decided to try him out after the patch, and I was holy shit, this character is some piece of garbage. I don't even know what's going on.
So you think he's that bad? That bad?
He's I don't see him winning any matchups in this game. I just don't see it anymore for this character. Anything that he was winning is definitely 5-5 or the other character is winning. There's a lot of situations you can see like he beat Scarecrow 6-4, and there is no way in hell that he's going to be able to beat Scarecrow. You know, he's just not going to win that matchup. He doesn't build the meter to keep him off. He like once Scarecrow gets rid of his bar, like what is he going to do? He's not got no real good anti-airs, so I don't see it happening. Like the interesting thing is in matchups that you don't have to use his wrist shot, it might actually be kind of decent because like I was playing Illusion's Green Arrow, and I was just sticking to Ricochet and Rifle, and I think it might be able to work out. You know, there's that. There's also a situation that it might be able to work out if you can just do instant air shots, right? And that's your main way of fighting with him. Like it can work out, but you have to take into account that he's not building the same kind of meter anymore. He's not doing the same kind of damage because his BMBs are tougher. So a lot of times you have to end it with a ricochet shot. So you're already losing some damage there. Yeah, I mean, it's just like his wrist shot is just really bad. I'm sorry.
But
I don't know what else to say.
Okay, so I'm not going to disagree with you because I never really played the character competitively, so I don't know enough about him like pre-patch or post-patch to be able to turn on my downplaying alarm or not.
Yeah.
But okay, so if the character's garbage, you know, if he has no losing matchups, what nerf do you think he shouldn't have gotten? Where do you think, as a former Deadshot main, that NRS stepped the line in the nerf department?
I think that, you know, them nerfing the meter build was a great nerf. I think he didn't need to build the amount of meter that he was building using wrist shot. Absolutely. And that was fine. But to nerf the wrist shot so that it's 14 frames instead of 11, you're missing out on punishes. But the biggest nerf to it was that there's 10 frames of added recovery if the opponent ducks it. So your opponent can just get in for free now. It is just so easy to get in on Deadshot. I can the clashable rifle, the meter burn clashable rifle. I think that's okay if they weren't to. I think the main issues were to the wrist shot that they really nerfed that way too hard, in my opinion.
And you don't think that his normals suffice, like, to compensate for the zoning nerfs?
I mean, they in the previous patch they had already nerfed his normals, and now I like if they wanted to make this character like an up close character, I think they should have adjusted for the fact that he's not like a great zoner. If Deadshot is getting outzoned by Harley, and he like murdered her in the previous patch, there is definitely a clear problem going on, in my opinion.
I see. Yeah,
he gets outzoned by Swamp Thing. No lies.
He gets outzoned by Swamp Thing.
He will get outzoned by Swamp Thing. The logs will chip him to death. I'm not lying.
Dude. Outzoned by... Because, like, I play Swamp Thing. Like, I obviously don't play him at the level of, like, other Swamp Things, but it's just, like...
The thing is, you just duck, and you chip him with a log, and, like, dude, you can just keep doing that. Like, he's not going to build as much meter as you're going to build. Like, you can just chip him out with logs.
Man. I mean, okay, I'm not gonna call you out on that because I really want to test that out later. And then, like, tell you what, I already apologized to you about you beating Sonic first game with Swamp Thing. If it turns out that Swamp Thing actually outzones Deadshot, I will issue you a public apology on Twitter for that as well. Just to...
Well, we'll see. Well, it'll take some... I mean, I could play my Deadshot against your Swamp Thing, and we just see what's going on.
Okay.
So.
So, speaking of Deadshot, in a lot of casual communities, Deadshot equals spam.
Yes.
Along with plenty of other characters in this game. You know, you got the spammy Deadshot, the spammy Dr. Fate, the spammy dragons, Trident Rush.
Yeah.
Spam. You're a guy who So I know you told me that you inherently don't play big body characters out of some kind of attachment to them, but you're also a player who's dealt with a lot of zoning throughout the span of many different games. You know, you've dealt with zoning as Bane. You know, you've dealt with, even though zoning wasn't as prevalent in MKX, you've still dealt with like trying to get in as Ferritor in MKX. You know, that's not like getting in on people on a competitive level is not something that you're a stranger to.
Mm.
So, to a lot of the Injustice 2 newcomers that are struggling with like zoners or, you know, spammers, so to speak, what advice could you give to those newcomers to be able to, you know, pass that hurdle, essentially?
Okay, so I'm just gonna say, like, just because I've seen this on YouTube as well, that other people have complained that I spam the Bane bomb.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what is the limit of spamming and what you know, what it can relate to. We don't know. It can relate to anything apparently, but as far as projectiles in fighting games, you know, if you do play a character that doesn't have a projectile, you know, there are a couple characters in Injustice that just don't have that or have a means to kind of deal with it. I mean, as Bane, I would switch my character. No.
Oh my god, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
I mean, okay, if you actually want to play it as Bane, you have to obviously be super patient. I'm not gonna say I'm some kind of super patient player. I know I'm not. That's not the kind of person I am. I can play patient to some degree, but it's really like you have to check your movement. You can't be dashing in, you know, all willy-nilly. You gotta be prepared to walk in on your opponent when you have to. I mean, if as a Bane, in a Bane perspective, do not charge like a maniac. So obvious that also plays an important you know, point with patience. But it really is just patience. I would say, you know, if you are getting zoned out and you're not enjoying it,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people will not enjoy a Wonder Woman shield bashing you over and over again, or a Green Arrow using his retreating shot over again, and you just can't touch him. You should probably, you know, look into other members of the cast and see if there is somebody else out there for you to help you in those kind of situations, because, you know, sometimes your character is just losing the matchup, and that's just the way it is.
That is like telling the newcomers that Santa Claus essentially doesn't exist and that it's a nasty, nasty world out there.
I mean,
you're basically saying like, don't be loyal, man. Like, cheat on your main. Essentially, it's okay. It's heartless.
you know, I'm jaded. That's the kind of person that I've become. You know, I've played those, you know, 2 games in the past, so this new game has taught me a lot. And if it's taught me anything, it's used many characters for many situations.
And then, I mean, you can just tell those people that want to, you know, be at your level, hey, look, everyone, I won a premiere. Look at all these top 8s I got by not being a loyalist.
Exactly.
You can be... It's like, just show your versus fighting video and just say, you can be just like me if you just add a Deadshot into your arsenal.
I mean, that's what it is.
I honestly can't say that I disagree. Like, I agree with you completely. Because even though I like to say that I'm very passionate about Superman, I mean, I do love the character. I have his comics, I have his action figures, I have a lot of memorabilia. Just like you, I don't want to fucking deal with 4 6s or 3 7s. Like, I want to always make sure when I'm at a premiere event with a lot of money on the line that the matchup is at a minimum like 5.5, 4.5 in my favor. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're out here to... I mean, obviously, passion...
You're a better man than me. I would at least do 5.5 to the minimum. 5.5 is pretty...
Get those 5.5s out of here. I'm sorry. Get them out of here. There's a... Like, okay, let me give you an example. So, I think Supergirl has an edge on Bane. Just like a little bit of an edge.
Yeah,
do you agree?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
But if I fought you in tournament just a little bit of an edge in the matchup is not enough for me. I need to have a hard 6-4 at least. I don't want to like get those 5-5s out of here. Get those soft 6-4s out of here. I want to have a trait that breaks your armor, which is why I prefer Superman over Supergirl against Bane. Just as like a tangible example.
What is, in your opinion, is Manta and Superman?
I have no idea.
Okay. Because I'm really interested to see that matchup because I think Manta would do. I don't see why Manta would do bad at all because he has teleport to punish the laser. So. Right.
I mean, Jur, who plays Manta, says that he feels that it's in Manta's favor too. So yeah, we can definitely try that sometime. But anyway, as I was saying, like, yeah, at the end of the day, like with all the money that's on the line with these premieres, and then like future tournaments are gonna have pop bonuses, like there's really no time to deal with unfavorable matchups. Even though like you love Bane and I love Superman, even though Superman's a much better character than Bane.
Okay then.
Yeah. I mean, okay, like with Bane you have like 15 bad matchups or whatever. With Superman there's like 3 or 4, but like just 3 or 4 bad matchups means that there's like a 3 out of 30 chance that like my paycheck from these premieres is going to be compromised.
Yeah. I mean, I like to say, because I do believe that Bane has like 18 bad matchups. I'm not even downplaying that point. Mm-hmm. But unlike other characters, he does have a Bane factor going on for him.
Right.
That he has, his Venom can like kind of change matchups in some ways, and especially if he's kind of got his Bane train thing going, that it's very possible. Mm-hmm. So that's the main thing that's like kind of different about him, is that even though he does have these bad matchups, there is some weird kind of little thing going on because he does have his Venom.
But like at the end of the day, like I agree with you on the Bane factor, because like I feel like Bane is in that tier with like Bane, Flash, Canary, and like I guess Cheetah, where in a long set they're much more bearable than in a first to 3. But like in your case as a Bane player, how do you know whether to fall back on the Bane factor in tournament or not? Like how do you know if it's appropriate to try your chances in a first to 3 as opposed to going to Harley or Manta or whoever?
I think what it comes down to is because unless something were to happen, I know Tekken Master is a kind of person that might throw out a random character that you don't know that they're playing. Mm-hmm. For the majority, I like to keep tabs on like who's playing who, and I like to because if it comes down to it, if you find that you're playing against an opponent that uses the whole counterpicking system to the best of their ability,
right?
You want to prioritize who you're going to be using first. So the meta game starts before the match, Mm-hmm. And it actually happened with I believe at SoCal Regionals. I fought Illusions, and I had an idea that he was going to pick Catwoman on me, thinking I was going to pick Deadshot.
Right.
Because I'd fought him in casuals and he was like mopping up my Deadshot. So I decided to go Bane from the start because I wanted to deal with his Catwoman, and it's something that just kind of worked out. Like we both, blind picked, and he picked Catwoman, I picked Bane, and it kind of ended up just working out for me. I was still able to take his Green Arrow with Bane, even though that's a tough one for Bane. But it definitely, the first match is the most important match in that kind of situation.
Oh yeah, for sure. And at the same time, like it also gives this kind of guessing game, because like you and your brother are like amazing when it comes to blind picking, where it's like you always have that mix up where you're gonna blind pick, but you might choose like Bane. Or you're going to blind pick and your opponent thinks you're going to choose X character, but you choose Y character. Like, you definitely use the blind pick metagame probably better than any other player that I've seen so far. Just because, you also have a huge arsenal of characters relative to some other players in the scene. So, yeah.
Like, if it came to you, say, like, I know you're playing these kind of 3 characters. A character like Harley would probably not be one of the characters I would be deciding to use against you, because a lot of characters just kind of shit on Harley.
Yeah.
You know, so I have a couple of other characters that I might decide to choose instead.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the fact that you're playing Manta now, that's definitely like a monkey wrench in the counterpick triangle, because it's two reasons. One, because Manta may or may not do well against, you know, some of my characters, like mainly, like you said, you were curious on Manta versus Superman, which I am too. But secondly, because another reason why Manta is kind of scary in the counterpick triangle is because people don't really know for sure how good he is yet. Like when Manta first came out, people said, you know, he does low damage, high execution, so he's trash.
Yeah.
But then, like, as the game went on, people said, oh wait, his footsies and neutral is really, really good. This character might be really, really good. So it's also that fear of the unknown when you face Manta this early in the game cycle, because you never really know, like, what new setups so-and-so Manta player has that you might just find out in the first to 3 when it's too late.
Yeah, I would say for sure Manta's a very like creative character. Like you can have, you know, multiple people playing Manta in like multiple different ways. Mm-hmm. And I find that also to be true with like a character like Swamp Thing.
Right.
Like he's actually like a very creative kind of character, and the way you use green carpet is gonna be like Abigail's Garden.
I was just gonna say green carpet.
Yeah, but the way you might use Abigail's Garden in comparison to somebody else, it might be completely different and might completely change the way the game is played. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, speaking of you diversifying your arsenal, and you know that being a big reason to your success in Injustice 2. Just kind of going over your resume in you know a lot of different games. You had quite a few top 8s in Injustice 1. You had some top 8s in MKX, along with an appearance in Season 2 ESL, correct?
Yes.
And then in Injustice 2, you had Combo Breaker, you had IPS Finals, you won a premiere in Versus Fighting, you know, second at ECT, etc., etc. You have a very, very decorated resume on the span of all 3 games. Now that you have all that, just from an outsider perspective, Evo is like one of the things that also needs to be added onto your resume. Given all your accomplishments, what does having an Evo top 8 mean relative to all that? Would it be bigger than all that? Would it be, you know, just the same? What's going on with that?
I think, I mean, because, you know, as being like an NRS player, you know, the problems that Evo obviously carries for us. Nonetheless, like Evo still does hold a special place. You know, even before I was competing competitively, when I found out about the FGC, it was because of Evo.
Right.
You know, I was watching like Street Fighter 4 and Marvel, and so the first time I found out about, you know, competitive fighting games is because of Evo.
Right.
I think Evo to me, I don't even know the kind of emotion that I would kind of have for getting an Evo medal.
Keep in mind, it's not just the Evo medal. It's you get the Evo medal, you get money, props.
Yeah.
But most of all, you get your name on Wikipedia when people look up Evo Championship Series.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude.
So okay, if you look at like kind of my past with Evo, right? Mm-hmm. So I started obviously last year of Injustice. That was at Evo. Somehow I got 9th. I have no idea like how that happened, because I basically won my pool, played 16-bit, and almost got top 8 in my next match. Like, I don't know what was going on there. I think I got a bye, had to play 16-bit, got another bye, had to play Pick of the Hut, and then I would have made top 8. So it was very strange for me, because given how Evo is supposed to be a huge tournament, I was kind of shocked at like that I actually almost got in like top 8 just like that. Mm-hmm. When it came to the first year of Mortal Kombat, I absolutely tanked at Evo. I don't even think I made like the top 100 and whatever people. I got destroyed. Then for Mortal Kombat, I got ninth, and that kind of like that ninth at Evo kind of like really hurt me, like pretty bad. Like there's like some there's like ESL season 2 Mortal Kombat. You guys like saw Chasing the Cup, so you know how bad that was for me. Like I was going through a lot of like personal stuff during the time, and like it also carried into Evo because like it kind of started during that time and then ended at Evo. So with that, it just, losing at that moment wasn't, it just didn't sit well with me. Like, if there's any kind of like ever a depression that I had, it would have been in those 2 moments for sure. But that being said, you kind of have to put that in the past and learn from your experience. And, I think that kind of like hardened me for Injustice 2.
Of course.
Like I kind of experienced like the lowest point. So if it ever comes to that point again, I know how to handle it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, because this has obviously happened to you, as you just said, getting ninth at Evo is something that, like, I can't fathom on how, like, disheartening it is. And I can sort of try to relate to you in a sense that, kind of going back to Injustice 1, I won SoCal Regionals, MLG Anaheim, and UFGTX.
Yeah. So
I was considered to be one of the favorites going into Evo. You had Perfect Legend always telling me on Skype, "Hey man, congrats on winning Evo, LOL, nerf Aquaman." And then I just thought to myself that, I'm just going to go to Evo, I'll win, and if I don't win, I'll get second or third, so it's just going to be business as usual. And then, of course, like, that didn't happen, as history showed. Newbie got the best of me, and MIT got the best of me. And I would say getting 7th at Evo probably was one of the most heartbreaking and shocking things that I've went through, like, as a 20-year-old kid, like, at the time. It's just because it was kind of like something that I was too young to understand how to handle, because, like, I didn't really understand what it meant to lose at that point. So even though a lot of people tell me in retrospect, like, "Hey man, you got an Evo medal, what's the big deal?" Like, relative to my success at the time, like, 7th was essentially last place in my perspective. So I would say that for a good 2 to 3 months after the fact, I was so emo and so depressed, just like looking back at that moment, that I just didn't want to play Injustice 1 anymore. Like, I thought that, like, I want to take a break. This was the big one, and I failed, so I'm a failure. Like, none of my major wins in the past matter anymore because I tanked at the big one. But just like how you said, like, those are some things that you just basically learn from, and at the end of the day, like, you become the better man. And that was just kind of like my way of trying to relate to being emo in terms of underperforming at big majors. But, like, since you said that it hardened you, like, your Evo performance, like, hardened you to become much more resilient, and clearly it showed because you did, like, so much better, like, after Evo. What advice could you give to people that are emo at, like, losing so early into their competitive career? Like,
I mean, so I know there's a lot of people that you want to make it out of pools. Okay, we'll start with, like, you enter a tournament and maybe it's your first tournament and you don't know what to expect. Maybe you go 0-2 and then you want to get better from there. You have to take baby steps,
right?
Because as, like, when I started, Injustice competitively, I was that guy that was like 0-2. I go to my local and I get 0-2, right? And then you learn from what happens. You check match footage. Obviously, a good way of learning. Check your matches. check other people's matches and see what you can take from them. That was a good way for me to like learn from like my experiences and like build upon that.
Right.
And then if like you're able to like win those matches, you want to, you know, make it out of pools and such, right? You know, just like you have to like be able to take the fact that you're going to lose and that you are going to be able to do better than that. You know, you have like, not everybody is going to be some like Sonic Fox out of nowhere and just start winning shit, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you have to know, you have to be like prepared that you are going to possibly lose and what you can gain from losing, for sure.
And that's what's so inspirational afterwards is that like when you underperform at a big major, like at that moment, it's basically hell on earth. It's like the worst thing that ever happened to you. And then you just say to yourself, like, I'm not good at this game anymore. Like, it's over. Like, I am officially washed up because I missed top 8, like, once in a blue moon.
I mean, I don't really say that. And my mindset is, like, if I lose at a big tournament, it's not like I'm garbage, I suck. It's like, you know, whoever I was fighting got the upper hand on me. Whoever I was fighting was the better person that day. It doesn't mean I'm not able to beat them or that, you know, in another situation I would be able to do better than them or get a better placing. It's just some things, you know, just don't happen the way you want them to happen. And sometimes it just goes in the other person's favor. And you just kind of have to live with that and like look towards the next kind of tournament, you know?
Yeah, of course. And the way you're saying that like so level-headedly, that like you're still, that even when you lost at a big tournament, you're still like so self-confident in your skill. Like that's just how you have to like, you basically have to keep that self-confidence like moving forward. Just brush it off and then go in versus fighting like you just did essentially.
I mean, it's fine. You know, you have to like experience your emotions. I know there's not every player is like an emotional player, but if you're that kind of emotional player, like don't be afraid to just like, you know, experience those emotions, and then after you've experienced them, then you're able to move on, you know?
Right, definitely. And I mean, speaking of winning versus fighting, like you didn't just win versus fighting. You also won an Australian tournament, like just very, very recently. So Go ahead and just tell me, like, how was your experience there? How was the Australian scene?
So, you know, Australian hospitality is like on another level for sure. I came back from the Last Chance qualifier and I was pretty down about that. You know, I expected to do better, and I kind of like completely choked. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's like a combination of things that it just didn't work out for me. But I did not do well at all. And so I came back home, expected to just, you know, I would just be home for a while, you know, no real tournament in the future, maybe in the next few months or so. And then I see the advertisement for PAX Australia that they're doing a $20,000 pot, you know. My brother sends me a message and is like, Matt, you should probably like check this out, and you know, maybe you can go to it. So thank God for Wasminator. You're a beautiful individual, and he was able to help me out, and huge thanks to Googie, who was able to house me for the weekend, because if I had not got in contact with those two guys, there was no chance in hell I would have been able to make it, because I literally had to book my flight when I got home and leave the next day.
Jesus.
And fly to Australia, because the time difference, I just skipped like Wednesday completely, and the tournament started on Friday. So
how long was the flight?
It was 22 and 23 hours.
Oh my God.
I flew to LA, had a short layover there, and then it was like 16 hours or something to Australia. Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, I was used to that kind of traveling before before I ended up getting sponsored, and I ended up flying to places a lot of the East Coast tournaments. I would normally travel 12 hours or so by car or bus or something.
But I mean, just the fact that it was that long, and to you, like, that's already okay. Like, that's something that I can't even fathom, because
Yeah.
even though you and I were both at Viennati, which in itself was like such a hefty flight, like even just the concept of me like flying to the East Coast is just such a taxing thing. Like just a 7 to 8 hour flight. I know I sound like kind of a wuss for saying that, but I guess that's just me.
Yeah.
It was just one layover to Australia.
Yeah, it was just one layover. Well, the flight back was just kind of it was just kind of all over the place. Like I was just kind of lucky. I had like 2 layovers on the way back, but it was just one on the way there. Mm-hmm. I got to meet the whole Australian community, played a lot of casuals, like more casuals. I think I played more casuals that weekend than I had ever played at like any tournament. And that's not like, and we still did a lot of other things. Googie and his girlfriend are like huge board game people. So we ended up playing this game called Avalon, and it was just amazing. So it was a great chance to like meet new people, make new friends, see like the whole Australia, like Australia as I went to Melbourne, so I got to kind of get a local view of the whole area and stuff like that. I got to experience that, and it was cool. Like I got to play in a convention, like so PAX is basically just like Comic-Con,
right?
So yeah, it was really interesting to I played in like movie theaters and like normal like hotel and ballroom areas or whatever, but this was like a really cool place that we were able to play in, and then like a convention center. It was really cool.
That is so freaking cool. And I mean, yeah, I've like talked to some of the Australian FGC members, like both via DM, and sometimes they stop by in the Twitch chat, and they all seem like nothing but just hospitable and just absolutely kind. So I mean, that clearly shows, like, based on your experience there. And one thing that I got is, since you said that you got more games there than you ever have, so would you basically, like, recommend that Tom Brady, like, travels to Australia just so he can finally get some games?
I think he would get more than his fair share of games if he were to travel to Australia. I think the Australian community is more than happy to play with Tom Brady.
Well, from what it sounds like, he'll go to Australia. He'll tell like Wasminator and like the other guys there just to like look at the knee for like about 2 or 3 hours, and then just like give them games right after that. That's my prediction essentially.
Fun fact: the Australian community were actually asking me a lot about like Tom Brady and like what I thought of him and where was he and all that kind of stuff. But
Diablo 3. He is just like dominating the Diablo 3 leaderboards. Well. Anyway, so besides look at the knee, what I actually want to do is so I have like quite a few fan questions like in my Twitter DMs. So I'm just gonna give you a couple of questions like at random.
Okay.
So the first question comes from Sunfire XOXO on Twitter. She's asking, why don't you use Harley as much as you used to? Is it because you don't think like that much of her on the tier list, or like basically what's going on there?
All right. So the thing with Harley is that it's not that I might end up being called out as like a down player for Harley or something like that. I find that when I'm playing certain people in tournament, that a lot of their characters that they're using because we know that a lot of people will use around 3 or characters. That's kind of like a normal tournament standard for the top guys, Mm-hmm. I find if I'm going to be playing one of these guys, somebody in their lineup, or maybe 2 people in their lineup, is not really a favorable matchup for Harley. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe because Harley is like, okay, I had Deadshot, right? Deadshot was kind of like a coverall in a lot of matchups. So a lot of times I would play Deadshot. Bane is kind of, I feel, a character that might be one of the most comfortable with because he's like I've played him from the first game and so on, right? But for Harley, she's, I feel like, probably definitely a secondary for me. And so when it comes to tournament, I might not just be comfortable using her when I could use my other two characters. So we'll see, like, in the future tournaments, how it goes. Maybe she might be more viable now in certain matchups, and I might actually end up using her more in my arsenal. So yeah, we'll just see what happens.
Right on. And yeah, I would assume that like some of the nerfs to some of the top tiers helped her out, like, a little bit, as far as just like her getting bumped up on the tier list, like that.
Yeah.
Now another fan, Fatality89, he is asking, what animes have you been watching lately, or plan on watching soon?
Fatality? Okay, so right now I'm watching My Hero Academia and Shokugeki no Soma season 3. So that's Food Wars season 3. Mm-hmm. I definitely want to check out a couple of other ones. I know, Sonic was telling me I need to watch some like Konosuba and some other animes. But yeah, I mean, it was just like what animes I'm watching right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I've been watching like a lot of like other shows. I watched like Stranger Things as well, and I love that. And so yeah, I actually haven't like watched as much anime as I was watching when like we discussed anime. So sorry about that, Fatality, but those are the kind of like anime I'm watching now.
Dang, you just broke his heart there by saying you've been watching Stranger Things instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's Stranger Things, so.
One thing that I wanted to talk to you about real quick before getting to my last question from the fan is that your room, or like just the room you're in, looks right now, looks like a Resident Evil save room, as someone brought up in the chat. Like I think it was someone
get that save room music in here.
I know, right? Like, dude, like if you look real closely, you can see like an ink ribbon in the background, as someone said in the Twitter chat.
Oh, wait, it's that way. There it is.
Oh my god. Did you see the list I posted recently about the best Resident Evil games?
Yes, I did.
Okay, because half the Twitter population grilled me, including your boy Gunny, and the other half agreed with me.
Okay, so what was the issue? Was it the whole Resident Evil 5? Was that the main grilling point?
Yeah, so I almost said honey. Gunny basically grilled me for saying that Resident Evil 5 is not just a decent game. Resident Evil 5 is a very, very good game. And then I said, okay, it's a fun game. Like, as co-op, it's cool. But, like, in my opinion, Resident Evil 5 is just, like, a Frankenstein monster re-stitched together version of Resident Evil 4 that's just commercialized. And it forces you to play co-op because Sheva's AI sucks. That was my reason that Resident Evil 5 is low on the tier list.
Okay, so number 1, Sheva is fucking hot. Number 2, if you watch me, on Twitch and I don't have my camera on, you see Chris Redfield. Chris Redfield is my boy.
Chris Redfield is dope. Let me clarify. Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 5 is dope, along with all the other versions. So I agree with you there.
Punches boulders, man. Like, what is there more to say about Chris Redfield?
Yeah, the boulder punching was cool. Like that, yeah. Just like everyone else, I like the boulder punching. Wesker was cool. Sheva was cool. But it's just the game. The game itself. I never had those kind of, like, the issue that everybody was like, oh, Sheva is like the worst AI I've ever had in a co-op game. I've never really experienced that problem with her. She didn't steal my bullets. I don't understand why everybody was hating on Sheva. So like, I think initially when I played Resident Evil 5, it's kind of like, it was good, but obviously Resident Evil 4 was better. When Resident Evil 6 came out, it got the Call of Duty effect where it's like the game before was just better and I didn't appreciate it for what it was, Right.
So
it was stuck in the shadow of a lot of better games before it.
Yeah. Looking back, I actually do enjoy Resident Evil 5. I wouldn't say it's a meh game. I would say it's a pretty good game.
So you're
My
so you're sorry. I just need to ask you real quick before you continue. So you're on the grillers side in this case.
Yes, because I definitely I don't think. Well, you didn't even have six. Can we talk about that? You didn't have six on your list.
Would you have Batman versus Superman in a tier list of the good superhero movies?
I mean, it's excruciating to have it on it, but at least you would, have some kind of opinion. I would think on it.
Okay, but that's the thing. It's. I was trying to talk about the good Resident Evil games on that list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still, they were based on a numerical value that you get, or an alphabetical value you gave that the games. I think that six should have been included. Maybe put it farther down, maybe in the Y category, possibly, and then fulfill the tier list of Resident Evil games. I think that's what you should have done.
I'll put it in the Capcom Why Though tier list.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, okay, even though it breaks my heart that you are with your boy Gunny and my boy 16-Bit on just grilling the shit out of me for that tier list,
I won't completely grill you because I do agree with you that Remake and Resident Evil 4 are the GOATs. They are the shit. I love them so much.
Thank you.
I always get this little scratch that I need to go and play Resident Evil 4 at some point, and I always fall for it's on another console, let me buy it and play it on a new console. Mm-hmm. So I played Resident Evil 4 probably I haven't played as much as Gunny, because if you ask him, he plays it probably 10 to 20 times, or that's how many times he's actually played the game. He's played it a fuck ton. But I played it, 5 to 6, which is pretty reasonable, mm-hmm. in my opinion. Remake has a special place because I definitely enjoyed the scares, and you kind of don't get that again if you replay the game. So the first time is definitely the best, and so definitely one of my favorite games for sure.
So while you are my homie for agreeing on the GOAT tier. So that means instead of you being on the George Foreman grill side that Gunny's on, you're on the light stovetop grill side. So you're...
That's fantastic.
Okay. Just so you know for sure. And then one last fan question, then I'll go ahead and go to the shoutouts. So I have Franco de Nicola 9 asking... So he had a two-part question where he said, what's your opinion on Bane on the tier list? But you did kind of answer that with saying he had so many bad matchups.
Yeah.
His second part is, what would be your selling point to have someone play Bane? How would you sell someone to play Bane?
The same way I would sell someone to play Swamp Thing. I would say the character is amazing fun. You're going to have a blast playing them, and you're going to, playing against somebody and making them salty is very fun to do with those kind of characters. If you like, obviously, wrestling, which I do, you're going to enjoy Bane a lot. If you like armor, which I do, you're going to enjoy Bane a lot. So, I mean, there's, as long as you're having fun, there's no real downside. Just don't use them in tournament if you're not winning.
That is a perfectly reasonable answer. As someone who doesn't even play a game, I still think that answer is very, very reasonable.
Thank you.
All right, man. So I think we have just reached our 1 hour mark. So at this point, would you like to give any shout-outs, good sir?
Yeah, so I'd like to give shout-outs to my sponsor, Eanix, mm-hmm. For, helping me out with getting to tournaments and such. Shout-outs to the viewers. Thank you for viewing, even though Sonic was streaming earlier, and I appreciate you guys dropping in and watching the last podcast of Krypton. Shout-outs to Theo, yourself, for putting this all together. The last podcast of Krypton is a very great watch. You have always good guests to, draw some information from, and I appreciate you choosing me to be on the show. Yeah, that's. I mean, I'll give a shout out to Honeybee, even though he didn't give a shout out to me. Shout outs to Honeybee as well. You don't deserve it, but there you go. There's your shout out. And yeah.
These flash down players, man. These flash down players. But yeah, man. So, I mean, Bio, thank you so much for stopping by the show. It has really, really been awesome. And just like Bio said to the viewers, thank you guys so, so much for watching. If you guys haven't already, please go ahead and give Bio's Twitch and Twitter a follow. I will go ahead and leave those in the description for my YouTube video. And yeah, guys, until next week, thank you guys so much for watching, and y'all have a great day.
Peace.
Peace.